Hello, everyone, and welcome to lesson 12 of this incredible book, Prosperity by Charles Fillmore. I am Reverend Wally White with Unity in Greensboro, and let my fellow minister introduce himself.
Hey, friends, I am Reverend Todd Humphrey. I'm the spiritual leader at Crystal Coast Unity in Atlantic Beach, North Carolina. And we are excited that we have gotten to lesson 12, Wally. Can you believe that we have been doing this for 12 weeks now? This is lesson 12 of Charles Fillmore's book, Prosperity. And we've been having this great time talking about these lessons and hearing your comments, hearing comments from all of you. And we want to remind you, keep doing that. And even if you go back after the fact and look at these lessons and see something that moves you, we'll be checking in on these lessons online so we can see if people are watching it after the fact as well.
Yeah, I love this information, and I love, like, not just sitting at home by myself reading it, but reading with somebody and having the conversation. And so I love that we've been able to have those conversations, and I hope that will continue by people posting and commenting. Look, this has been the experiment to see if this was a different kind of way of having class where people didn't have to be available on a certain day and a certain time, that we would record this and we would put it out in a way that people could get it when it was good for them. So I hope that continues to work long after we hit stop on this final lesson of this. So have the conversations. We'll join in where we can, and then you all talk with each other in those comments as well. So I'm filled with gratitude both for Todd saying yes to this and Christina joining us when she was able to, and then all of you who are watching and commenting and sharing, so that we can all grow more and more as we go through this information. And when we finish reading this round, I'm not done studying this book. I think I'll study this book for years to come.
That's one of the really interesting things that I find about the writings of so many of the early Unity people, especially Charles and Myrtle. Every time I pick up their books and look at them and read them, the knowledge grows. Like there's been an expansion of consciousness, and now it hits me in a new way. It hits me in a different way, and even I think
One of us has frozen. I don't know if it's me or Todd. I know that Todd is frozen on my screen, but sometimes that means that I'm frozen. Todd, was I frozen on your end?
you were frozen on my screen. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that when that happens, it doesn't mean it's the other person that's thing. So I don't know where we were on that, or who heard what.
I don't either.
Well, let's move forward. We'll start reading. If it happens again, we'll cut it and we'll start it again.
That sounds good to me.
All right, so we are, as we've said, on lesson 12, overcoming the thought of lack. The kingdom of heaven is like unto a net that was cast into the sea and gathered of every kind, which, when it was filled, they drew up on the beach, and they sat down and gathered the good into vessels, but the bad they cast away. The mind of man is like the net catching every kind of idea, and it is man's privilege and duty under the divine law to separate those that are good from those that are not good. In this process, the currents of unselfish spiritual love flowing through the soul act as great eliminators, freeing the consciousness of thoughts of hate, lack, and poverty, and giving the substance of spirit free access into the consciousness and affairs. In another parable, Jesus explained the same process as a separation of the sheep from the goats. When this divine current of love and spiritual understanding begins to work, we must make this separation. We put the sheep, the good and obedient and profitable thoughts, on the right, and we put the goats, the stubborn, selfish, useless thoughts, on the left. I bet there are some goats in the world that are not useless. We're just talking metaphysically. I bet there are a lot of goats that are not useless. I like goat cheese. All right, let me go back to the book. Um, each must handle his own thoughts and overcome them by aligning them with the harmony and order of the divine thought. There is an infinite, omnipresent wisdom within us that will deal with these thoughts and guide us in making the discrimination between the right and the wrong when we trust ourselves fully to its intelligence. We can establish a connection between the conscious mind and the superconscious mind within us by meditation, by silence, and by speaking the word. The superconscious mind within you discriminates among the kinds of food you assimilate, controls your digestion, your breathing, and the beating of your heart. It doeth all things well, and it will help you to do the important work of directing you in the thoughts you should hold and the ones you should cast out. As you develop this mind within yourself, you will find that you can gradually turn more and more of your affairs to its perfect discrimination. Nothing is too great for it to accomplish, nor is anything too trivial for it to handle with perfection and dispatch. This mind of the Spirit will guide you in perfect ways, even in the minute details of your life, if you will let it do so. But you must will to do its will and trust it in all your ways. It will lead you unfailingly into health, happiness, and prosperity, as it has done and as is doing for thousands, if and when you follow it. It is just as necessary that one should let go of old thoughts and conditions after they have served their purpose, as it is that one should lay hold of new ideas and create new conditions to meet one's requirements. In fact, we cannot lay hold of the new ideas and make the new conditions until we have made room for them by eliminating the old. If we feel that we cannot part with the goats, we shall have to do with fewer sheep. If we insist on filling the vessels with bad fish, we shall have to do without the good. We are learning that thoughts are things and occupy space in mind. We cannot have new or better ones in a place already crowded with old, weak, inefficient thoughts. A mental house cleaning is even more necessary than a material one, for the without is but a reflection of the within. Clean the inside of the platter where the food is kept, as well as the outside that people see, taught Jesus. I want to stop and talk about a couple of thoughts that came up for me there. One is, just so that we're all clear, there's an infinite amount of space in our minds, in our consciousness, but there's a minute direction that our attention can be directed towards something. So if we're, because we can say we've let go of old thoughts and we've taken on the new ones, and then we can get with a group of old friends and they can start reminding us of all the old thoughts. They didn't hit an incinerator and disappear. We just let them go from our attention, right? And so, just to be clear on that, it's like saying, no, I'm letting that go. The other thought that coincides with that came up when I started reading that last paragraph was, many of us love that the saying when we're talking about people in our lives, some are there for a lifetime and some are there for a season. Well, that is the same thing of the thoughts. So when somebody starts saying to you, no, we have to do it this way because this is the way we've always done it. Well, maybe we did it that way in a seasonal time and we're in a new season. if something new is coming up. So what do you think about that, Todd?
I think that's absolutely right, and I think that is uh, that lends itself to this idea of self care and making sure that we spend time in the silence. We spend time cultivating that awareness of actually what we are thinking. What are the thoughts? What are the beliefs we are holding on to? Because you know, I'm reminded of the workshop that we saw Reverend Greta do last year, where about we get to change our minds, and we all change our minds, right? We decide we're going to do things differently, and then without paying attention, we change our minds back, right? And so we have to cultivate that awareness of knowing ourselves and knowing what we're holding in consciousness. What are the beliefs we're holding? Because it'll slip back in if we're not careful. It's so that's
Yeah.
great awareness. One other thing that I thought of early on, when you were talking about goat cheese, that not all the goats are bad. I want to point out that um, we're saying sheep and goats to delineate metaphysically between those which we can label as good and those which we are going to label as bad in this season, right?
Right.
And I want to remind us all that sometimes seasonally the goat does not serve our needs, right? But we might have a friend where this idea is still divine, but it doesn't serve our needs anymore. We can give some of these ideas away. We can pass them on, right? It's just another form of energy, and we can pass on our ideas that we can't use anymore.
Right. And one sheep to one person is a goat to another, you know?
Yes.
Um,
Trash and
because
treasure.
we all have our own perspective that we're having this human experience through. So like the projects I'm working on may need a certain set of ideas that wouldn't help you at all because that's not what you're working on.
Absolutely.
A nice kind of visual way to think of that too is, December and January in the United States is a cold time of year. It's our winter. But if you go to Australia, you better pack some shorts and a t-shirt. While we're existing on the same planet at the same months by their name, there's a completely different experience in it. So I say that in one way of saying, don't look at what someone else is doing and judge what they're calling as their sheep and say, those are goats. You're not doing it right. And also, don't look at what someone else is doing and then shut down your own inspiration, right? So if you get these ideas and you feel that divine in you, like that's something none of us can ever truly teach you. There's this feeling that that this is right. Don't then look over to me and say, well, he's not doing it that way. Because I'm not living your life. I can't do it that way. But live it and trust it. And if you have questions, find like-minded people and talk it through, but talk it through from a place of gaining your own understanding, not gaining somebody else's approval.
Preach. That'll preach, Reverend Wally.
That
I,
that invisible pulpit is in my house.
we were talking about sheep and goats, and so Zoomer had to come and investigate.
I say, hey, I hear some.
This is my little one. So
Hey,
she's feeling a little needy today. So I apologize that she's been making some noise in the background.
I didn't even hear her. I saw her though. And she's adorable. All right, let's get back in here. The first full paragraph on 175. Old thoughts must be denied and the mind cleansed in preparation before the affirmative Christ consciousness can come in. Our mind and even our body is loaded with error thoughts. Every cell is clothed with thoughts, and every cell has a mind of its own. By the use of denial, we break through the outer crust, the material thought that has enveloped the cells, and get down into the substance and the life within them. Then we make contact with the substance and life which our denials have exposed, and by it express the positive, constructive side of the law. When we consistently deny the limitations of the material, we begin to reveal the spiritual law that waits within ourselves to be fulfilled. When this law is revealed to our consciousness, we begin to use it to demonstrate all things that are good. That is the state of consciousness that Jesus had, the Christ consciousness. Every man has a definite work to do in the carrying forward of the divine law of spiritual evolution. The law is set into action by our thinking and is continually supported by our thought as it develops our soul. Within us are the great potentialities of spirit that, put into action, enable us to be, do, or have anything we will. Science tells us that each of us has enough energy within himself to run a universe, and if we knew how to release and control it. We do this releasing by a process of letting go and taking hold, letting go of the old or that which has done its part and is no longer useful, and taking hold of the new ideas and inspirations that come from the superconscious mind. Jesus told Peter that what he should bind in earth would be bound in heaven, and what he should loose on earth would be loosed in heaven. He was not talking about a geographical earth or a definite place in the skies called heaven. He was explaining to Peter the law of mind. The conscious mind is but the negative pole of a very positive realm of thought. That positive realm of thought Jesus called the kingdom of the heavens. It is not a place at all, but it is a free activity of the superconscious mind of man. Whatever we bind or limit in earth, in the conscious mind, shall be bound or limited in the ideal or heavenly realm. And whatever we loose and set free in the conscious mind, earth, shall be loosed and set free in the ideal, the heavenly. In other words, whatever you affirm or deny in your conscious mind determines the character of the supermind activities. All power is given unto you both in heaven and in earth through your thoughts. I'm going to go back and read that last bit again. Let's see where it says in other words. In other words, whatever you affirm or deny in your conscious mind determines the character of the supermind activities. All power is given unto you both in heaven and earth through your thought. We must carefully choose what thoughts we are going to loose in the mind and what thoughts we are going to bind, for they will come into manifestation in our affairs. As he, people, thinketh within himself, so is he. And whatsoever a man soweth in the mind, that shall he also reap in manifestation. We must loose all thoughts of lack and insufficiency in the mind and let them go, just as Jesus commanded be done with the wrappings that held Lazarus. Loose him and let him go. Loose all thoughts of lack and lay hold of thoughts of plenty. See the abundance of all good things prepared for you and for all of us from the foundation of the world. We live in a very sea of inexhaustible substance, ready to come into manifestation when molded by our thought. Some persons are like fish in the sea, saying, "Where is the water?" In the presence of spiritual abundance, they cry, "Where will I get the money? How will I pay my bills? Will we have food or clothes or the necessities?" Plenty is here all around you, and when you have opened the eyes of spirit in yourself, you will see it and rejoice. We mold omnipresent substance with our mind and make from it all things that our mind conceives. If we conceive lack or poverty, we mold that. If we visualize with a bountiful eye, we mold plenty from the ever present substance. There is perhaps no step in spiritual unfoldment more important than the one we are taking here. We must learn to let go, to give up, to make room for the things we have prayed for and desired. This is called renunciation or elimination. Sacrifice, it may even seem to some people. It is simply the giving up and casting away of the old thoughts that have put us where we are and are putting in their place new ideas that promise to improve our condition. If the new ideas fail to keep this promise, we cast them away in their turn for others, confident that we shall eventually find the right ideas that will bring that which we desire. We always want something better than we have. It is a it is the urge of progress, of development and growth. As children outgrow their clothes, we outgrow our ideals and ambitions, broadening our horizon of life as we advance. There must be a constant elimination of the old to keep pace with this growth. When we cling to the old ideals, we hinder our advance or stop it altogether. Metaphysically, our metaphysicians speak of this eliminative work as denial. Denial usually comes first. It sweeps out the debris and makes room for the new tenant that is brought into the mind by affirmation. It would not be wise to eliminate the old thoughts unless you knew that there are higher, better ones to take their place. But we need not fear this because we know the divine truth that God is the source of all good and that all good things can be ours through love and grace of Jesus Christ. I want to stop and talk there a bit. I think that um, many people are going to have known this lesson in some form or another. Certainly, if you visited a Unity church around the new year and participated in the Burning Bowl, we teach this there in a way that has a nice clarity to it because there's visuals and there's actual activities of burning paper, right? But it's always important that you don't just burn the paper. Like, if you don't know what I'm talking about, someone out there, you write down a list of what it is you're ready to get rid of. Procrastination has been on my list for 23 years, and I burn it up, and then I find a new angle and grab hold of it again in some way or another sometimes. Actually, I don't think procrastination was on my list this year. But what is taught is with the list that you're writing of the things that you want to get rid of, whether you actually burn it, you turn it up, or you tear it up, or you just say, this is it. This is the gone list. You then do what we call writing a letter to God. And if you don't want to be that formal about it, you write another list of the things that you are claiming because nature doesn't really allow a vacuum. So if you say, I'm clearing this space out, something will fill the space. And if you don't on purpose fill the space, probably the most likely result is the things that you claimed to have gotten rid of will just fall right back into the gap. Um, so that's what we're talking about here. You don't have to go through the formal burning bowl ceremony or any of that stuff. And you don't have to do it once a year when Unity traditionally does that service. You can on June 23rd, August 3rd, whatever, say today, this idea, this group of ideas, this old pattern of activity that I used to do all the time is no longer serving me. And right here, right now, I'm letting it go. And then that's because what I want is, and then you're right in line for what it is you do want. I love the way that Abraham Hicks teaches this of the releasing, or when you get to something that you don't want and you find the resistance to that, that's only a bad thing if you just lay hold and grab hold of the resistance and stick there. If you see it and allow it to then say, I don't want this because I want fill in the blank, then that helps get your mind where then you maybe are going to have to do some work. Because if you've been working with some old ideas or some old activities for a while, there's a habit in your body that you got to break. So it may come up a few more times after you say, I'm done. And then you got to get back in there and say, and say, all right, I know I'm done with that because I'm doing this now. I'm done with that because I believe this now. I'm done with that because I'm expecting this new good now. And so there's no room for that. That was a longer thing that I meant to do, but it just kept flowing.
Perfect. It's a great, I mean, it's there's so much wisdom there. Thank you for sharing that. It's
It's a tough thing because that's the thing that I think that's the commonality for every human being, whether they've ever heard of unity or whether they ever will. We all get into a place of, having disappointments in our lives. So then we start to train ourselves not to expect good, because if we're not expecting the good, we won't be let down, except that's not true. As long, we're always going to want. That's part of the human nature, is to expand and to want. But none of us want our feelings hurt, and none of us want to feel let down. And then we start trying to protect ourselves in a way that's not helping us get to where we're meant to be.
right. And sometimes we don't prepare to receive what we want.
Yeah.
Because we do have to make room for it in our lives.
Right.
It's the example I have right now is I was putting away laundry today and I just realized I've got too many pairs of pants. Right? Because I keep telling myself, oh, I'll be able to wear those again someday, right? They're not going to be in style. Not that I am, big on, I'm not a fashionista or anything, but give it up, Todd. Make room in your life. So I'm talking about myself in third person. That's a little crazy. But I need to make some room in my life for the good I want to receive.
Right. And allow yourself to be so in the now that, like, there's somebody else that could use those pants right now. So let them have them, and then allow yourself the gift of some new ones when you are in the size that calls for that size of a pair of pants.
Right.
And then you get the fun of shopping.
Yeah. I don't know if it's fun though. I'm not sure that's where my joy is located.
Now, having new stuff is fun for most of us. Like,
Oh yeah, that is.
yeah. All right, let's see. We're on the top of 179. None of us has attained the supreme place in consciousness where he wholly gives up the material man and lives in the spirit, as Jesus did. But we have a concept of such a life, and his example showing it can be attained. We shall attain it when we escape the mortal. This does not mean that we must die to get free from mortality, for mortality is but a state of consciousness. We die daily and are reborn by the process of eliminating the thought that we are material and replacing it with the truth that we are spiritual. One of the great discoveries of modern science is that every atom in this so-called material universe has within it superabundant life elements. God is life and spirit, and he is in every atom. We release this spiritual life quality by denying the crust of materiality that surrounds the cells and affirming that they are spirit and life. This is the new birth, which takes place first as a conception in the mind, followed by the outworking in body and affairs. We all want better financial conditions. Here is the way to obtain them. Deny the old thoughts of lack of money and affirm the new thought of spiritual abundance everywhere manifest. Every lesson of scripture illustrates some phase of mental action and can be applied to each individual life according to the need that is most pressing at the time of its perception. If you do not look for the mental lesson when reading scripture, you get but the mere outer shell of truth. If, however, you have the proper understanding of the characters in the narrative, knowing that they represent ideas in your own mind, you can follow them in their various movements and find the way to solve all the problems of your life. This does not mean that a study of the written scriptures will itself solve your problems unless you can come into the apprehension of the real scripture, the Bible of the ages, the book of life within your own consciousness. But a study of the outer symbols as given in the written scriptures can and should lead you into the understanding of the truth of being. Just a short like stop back off on that. I love that it's like he makes it clear. It's like, yeah, within this is the answer to all your problems. Now don't try and take a shortcut in that and say, well, let me just read these few words and I'll have the answers to my problems. What the words are doing in whatever book you read, hopefully, if you're it is to help you find your way to the inner truth. It's never going to be in this book, in the Bible, in any book. What those books do and what those words do are help light up an understanding that is within us. And that is where the answer to every problem is. The other thing I wanted to jump back on was when he says back on the other page, deny the old thoughts of lack of money and affirm the new thought. Again, this is not to say lie to yourself and say you've got $1 million in the bank when you know it's closer to $10. It's like, but it is to say, even though I see less money on the account sheet, on the whatever, than what the bills are I have to pay, let me start right now by knowing that I am always taken care of and that there is an answer to this. And I'm going to see and expect the answer instead of continuing to stare at the problem and allow myself to just stew up in the worry. And that I lived that life for a while where the bills would, or the check would come in rather, and I'd go get it deposited. And then I would sit down at my desk with the stack of bills that I had and see which ones are due next, which ones might affect my credit more than the others. So which ones get paid today and which ones have to or need to wait until next week. So I understand, like, during those times, if you would have said to me, well, just do away with the thought that there's a lack of money, I'd have been like, somebody tell my bank that because they're not putting it, like I understand that that's a real life concern. But what this study is telling us is you cannot keep yourself focused on the worry or the concern and get out of it.
Right. Yeah, we can't be distracted by appearances in the manifest material world. Absolutely. You want me to read for a little bit?
That would be lovely.
Let's dive in. This is the first full paragraph on 180. In every person we find the conflicting ideas represented by the children of Israel and the Philistines. They are pitted against each other in a conflict that goes on night and day. We call these warring thoughts truth and error. When we are awakened spiritually, we stand on the other side of truth, knowing that truth thoughts are the chosen of the Lord, the children of Israel. But the error thoughts sometimes seem so real and so formidable that we quake and cringe with fear in their presence. We know that truth will eventually prevail, but we put the victory off somewhere in the future and say that the error is so large and strong that we cannot cope with it right now. We will wait until we have gathered more strength. Then we need to stand still and affirm the salvation of the Lord. Ideas are not all of the same importance. Some are large and strong, some are small and weak. There are aggressive, dominating ideas that parade themselves and brag about their power, and with threats of disaster, keep us frightened into submission to their wicked reign. These domineering ideas of error have one argument that they always use to impress us, that of the fear of results if we should dare to come out and meet them in open opposition. This fear of opposing ideas, even when we know them to be wrong, seems to be woven into our very mental fabric. This fear is symbolized by the spear of Goliath, which, as the story relates, was like a weaver's beam. What is the most fearful thought in the minds of men today? Is it not the power of money? Is it not Mammon, the greatest Philistine, the Goliath in your consciousness? Is it the same whether you are siding with the Philistines and are successful in your finances from a material viewpoint, or whether you are with the Israelites and tremble in your poverty? The daily appearance of this giant Goliath, the power of money, is something greatly feared. Neither the Philistines nor the Israelites are in possession of the promised land. Neither side at peace or happy in any security, so long as this domineering giant parades his strength and shouts his boasts. The error idea claims he is stronger than the Lord of Israel. He must be killed before all the other error thoughts will be driven out of your consciousness. And you can come into the consciousness of plenty, the promised land of milk and honey. The whole world today trembles before this giant error idea, the belief that money is the ruling power. The nations of the world are under this dominion because they have men think that money is power. The rich and the poor alike are slaves to this idea. Kings and great men of the earth bow and cringe before the money kings. This is because man has given this power to money by his erroneous thinking. He has made the golden calf, and now he falls before it in worship. Instead of making it his servant, he has called it master and become its slave. The rule of this mad giant has been disastrous, and the end of it is rapidly approaching. The first step in getting your mind free from this giant bugaboo is to get a clear perception of your right as a child of God. You know that you should put no other gods or powers before the true God. You also know that you should not be under the dominion of anything in the heavens above or the earth beneath, for you have been given dominion over all. You will never find a better time to come into the realization of the truth, of who and what you are and what your rights are. Never was a more propitious time to seek a new and better state of consciousness. If you are in fear of the boasting Philistine giant so many around you are, begin now to seek a way, as David, to give his flesh unto the birds of the heavens. There is a way, a righteous way that cannot fail, and it is your duty to find it. Follow each step of the way that is symbolically and beautifully set forth in the 17th chapter of 1 Samuel. The name David means the Lord's shepherd. The Lord's beloved. And David represents your righteous perception of your privileges as the child of God. You are not a slave to anything or to anybody in the universe. The threat of this Goliath, the power of money, holds no terrors for you in this consciousness. You have a smooth perception of truth, and you sing it straight to the center of his carnal thinking, his forehead. The weight of this shield and his armor does not intimidate you, for you see them for what they are, empty and meaningless show, vulnerable in many places, so that the true ideas of vulnerable in many places to the true ideas with which you are armed. Even the most ardent defenders of the money power will admit that it is a tyrant and that they would not have it rule over their world if they could help it. It nearly always destroys its friends in the end. Any man who becomes a slave to money is eventually crushed by it. On the other side are whole armies of righteous people, Christians, who, like the army of Israel, think that this giant cannot be overcome. They are waiting for reinforcement, someone larger, stronger in a physical way with which to overcome the enemy. They forget that the battle is Jehovah's. Do you cringe before this giant when he comes out daily to impress you with his boastings and threats? He does not have to be so. You need not continue to fear. There is a little idea in your mind that can slay him. You perhaps have not considered this little idea of much importance. Perhaps you have kept it off on a lonely mountainside of your spiritual consciousness, herding the sheep, which are your innocent thoughts. Now let this David come forth, this perception of your rightful place in divine mind. Get a clear idea of where you are, of where you really belong in creation and what your privileges are. Do you think for a moment that God has so ordained that men cannot escape from the terrible servitude of hard conditions? Of course not. That would be injustice, and God is above all just. It is your privilege to step out at any time and accept the challenge of this boaster. The Lord has been with you in the slaying of the fear of sin and sickness, the bear and the lion. He will still be with you in slaying the fear of poverty, which Goliath symbolizes. The battle is Jehovah's, and he is with us to deliver us out of the hand of the Philistines.
Something that keeps coming to mind for me through this. First of all, I love that he started this on, let's be clear on who, what you have and who you are. And then it's like, now let's talk about the realities of things that we experience. And like we have these things that then we feel like we have to battle. And uh the saying that I learned from my mentor Delarice that keeps rolling through my head as we're reading this part is, you got to know that you know what you know. Like, you got to go back when you start, mark that one page wherever that was that started saying, the first is on page 182 in this book, where it says the first step in getting your mind free of this giant, and then starts giving you that list. Mark that, make a photocopy of that piece, so that when you start to feel that you're in a battle and that there's something to have a war or a battle with, and that there is even the presence of the Goliath, that you go back there. Because in order to be the David in the situation, you've got to know that you know what you know. Because when you know it in that way, that you're not questioning who you are and what you are and what power you have within your spirituality, that's what you can stand on. That becomes your faith, right? That becomes the rock that you're standing on, so that you can do it. You can't be a trembling David, right? David wasn't trembling. So, but the ones that came before David did, and so within that story helps as far as thinking about our thoughts. If it's a trembling thought, it's probably not going to come out in victory. But when you stand on a rock of truth, now you've got that, now you've got what you got to know that you know what you know.
Indeed. Indeed. Hey, Reverend Wally, I'm going to ask that you pick up at 184 on the second full paragraph, because I have to step away for just a second. And I'll be right back and I'll pick up, but I'm going to
Okay.
let you read for just a moment. Thank you.
Sounds good. The weapons of the Lord's man are not carnal. He does not wage war after the manner of the world. He does not use armor of steel or brass, the protection of selfishness and the weapons of oppression. He goes forth in the simplicity of justice, knowing that his innocence is his defense. He uses only his shepherd's sling and smooth stones, words of truth. This is the will and the words of truth that it sends forth. They are disdained by the Philistines, and many people laugh at the idea of using words to overcome conditions. But words do their work, the work whereto they are sent, and the great mass of materiality goes down before their sure aim. We know that money was made for man and not man for money. No man needs to be a slave to his brother man or cringe before him to obtain money, which is the servant of all alike. We are not bound to the will of work, of ceaseless toil day after day, in order to appease the God of mammon on his own terms. We are children of the living God, who, as the loving Father, is right here in our midst, where we may claim him as our support and our resource on such conditions as he lovingly reveals when we have acknowledged him and denied mammon. This day has Jehovah delivered this proud Philistine into our hands, and the victory is ours. Praise God. You want to start reading on the 5 smooth stones?
I'll do that. Thank you so much. The 5 smooth stones chosen by David from the book represent 5 irrefutable statements of truth. These statements sent forth from a mind confident of itself, its cause, and its spiritual strength will crush the forehead of Goliath, error's giant. The statements are the following: I am the beloved of the Lord. He is with me in all my righteous words, and they do accomplish that whereto I send them forth. My cause is just, for it is my divine right to be supplied with all things whatsoever that the Father has placed at the disposal of his children. I dissolve in my own mind and in the minds of all others any thought that my own can be withheld from me. What is mine comes to me by the sure law of God, and in my clear perception of truth, I welcome it. I am not fearful of poverty, and I am under obligations to no one. My opulent Father has poured out to me all resources, and I am a mighty channel of abundance. I selfishly own nothing, and yet all things in existence are mine to use and in divine wisdom to bestow upon others. God, I love those. Do not hold yourself in poverty by the fear of lack and by practicing a pinching economy. If you believe that all the Father has is yours, then there is surely no reason for skimping. Nothing will so broaden your mind and your world as the realization that all is yours. When you realize the boundlessness of your spiritual inheritance, nothing shall be lacking in all your world. See with the bountiful eye, for he that hath a bountiful eye shall be blessed. This passage states an exact law, the law of increase. Religious leaders in the past have spread the belief that it is a Christian duty to be poor and that poverty is a virtue. This is by no means the doctrine of Jesus. He accepted the proposition fully, without reservation or qualification, that God is our resource and that the Father has provided all things for his children. He is often described as being poor, without a place to lay his head, and yet he had a parental home at Nazareth, and he was welcomed gladly into the homes of both rich and the poor all over Palestine. He dressed as a rabbi, and his clothing was so rich and valuable that the Roman soldiers coveted the seamless robe he wore and cast they that blah. He dressed as a rabbi, and his clothing was so rich and valuable that the Roman soldiers coveted the seamless robe he wore and cast lots for it. He found abundance in the kingdom of God, where everything needful becomes manifest, not through hard labor, but through the realization of truth. Jesus seldom had need for money because he went back of money to the idea it represents and dealt with money in the idea realm. Our government is back of all our paper dollars, else they would have no value. God is back of every material symbol, and it is in God rather than in the symbol that we should place our faith. He is back of our call for food and raiment and everything that we could need or desire. Jesus says all we need to do is ask in faith and in his name, believing that we receive and we shall receive. And we should not hesitate to ask largely, for God can give much as easily as he can give a little.
A thing is a thing is a thing to God, right?
That's right. That
It's
is
powerful
correct.
information, and I think it's very important that we acknowledge that this lesson was placed at the end of this lesson of prosperity. Like there's all this buildup of how we really use prosperity, of what prosperity is. But Mr. Fillmore closes out here by saying, you can have all this information, but it will do you no good if you stay focused in on or believe in lack.
Or if you believe that you should put your faith into the materialization and not on the mental plane. Put your faith in capital T truth, right? Thought, thinking and feeling nature. We know
Right.
this. It's our it's
Yeah,
our five
it's
principles. And
yeah.
it gets to this last one of, action. It's not enough to know this stuff. If you don't do anything with it, why know? Why know it?
I think that's exactly what this last lesson is about. Now you know it, but now you got to use it. Um,
Yes.
and as you go about using it, every once in a while, these thoughts are going to come up, these challenges are going to come up. And that's when you got to lean in or lean on what you know and what you've studied and what you've put into practice. And sometimes remind yourself, no, 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 I've done this before. It was maybe a little different before, but I've tested the waters here, and I know that this principle, this Christ mind, this truth about prosperity works. So let me, take a breath if I need to. Let me pray and meditate if I need to get connected to the truth. And then let the David within me, get to slinging, on those troubled thoughts.
Yep.
All right. This
Wally,
concludes our lesson on prosperity. I so look forward to you all sharing with us where this book helped you the most, where maybe it enlightened you with new information, where you found something that you're like, oh, I'm going to use that today here, and how it worked for you. And look, we're not, as teachers, not using this information. This isn't information that you read one time and you're like, got it, you get a certificate and you move on. Like, this is stuff like going to the gym that you read. And so I've gotten stuff out of every word of this as we've read through it, and I'm grateful to have it and be reminded of it and to sharpen my own tools within it. And I hope everyone else is or will use it in their own way that way also.
agreed. Reverend Wally, thank you for deciding this was ours to do, and getting us going on this journey and this unique way of providing valuable content uh, to spiritual seekers, to truth seekers, to people who want to understand a little bit more about our beliefs about prosperity as based on the writings of Charles Fillmore. It's been a great study. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and all of you that are joining us and commenting, let us know what you might be interested in diving into next, because I'm excited that we have this new engaging way that we can deliver content that you can dive into when it's convenient for you, because
Absolutely.
this
I
has
love
been
all this Unity information. It absolutely changed my life. And ultimately I became a minister because I wanted to keep making sure people knew about it. I think if I had a calling at all, it was like, no, like I didn't think this way at all until I stumbled across this, and it gave me permission to live a happier life, and I got to let other people know about this. So there are other books. We'll get to reading those, and yeah, so let us know.
uh, as part of the teaching, I do want to remind you that part of your unfolding in consciousness is to share your gifts with those places where you are spiritually fed. And so if you have been spiritually fed by this opportunity to dive into the works of Charles Fillmore, you can always make a love offering to Unity Worldwide Ministries or to Unity World Headquarters. Both make a good use of the love offerings they receive. I want to remind you, you can also make a love offering to Unity in Greensboro, or you can make a love offering to Crystal Coast Unity, or wherever you choose. You just have to make sure that you are sharing from your abundance wherever you are spiritually fed.
Stay in the flow. Stay in the flow.
That's right. Because it's a
Right.
spirit,
Thank
it's a
you,
spiritual
everybody,
law
and thank you,
of
Reverend Todd.
circulation. Thank you, Reverend Wally. I look forward to seeing you soon, friend. Be well.
All right.